Raiders fans, buckle up because things are starting to heat up around the silver and black. There's a storm of rumors floating across the NFL right now, and a lot of them are circling right around Las Vegas. The talk of the week? Trades. That's right. Moves could be coming, and some familiar faces might not be wearing that Raiders uniform for long. So today, let's dive deep into the kind of deals that might actually make sense, the players that could be on the move, and even a few names that Vegas might want to bring in before that deadline hits. Let's start with one that's been brewing behind the scenes, Malcolm Koonce. Every time trade talks start picking up, the first names everyone throws out are Max Crosby and Tyree Wilson. That's just how it goes when you've got two big defensive pieces who draw attention around the league. But sometimes, teams aren't really calling to land a star. They're calling to see who else might quietly be available. And that's where Koonce comes in. If we're being honest, the fit just hasn't looked great. He's on a one-year deal, hitting free agency soon. And while the potential is there, the chemistry just hasn't fully clicked in Vegas. Other teams see that, and you can bet they're wondering, is this a Raiders problem, or is this a Malcolm Koonce problem? Because if it's the former, some defensive coordinators are thinking they can unlock something in him. Plenty of teams were interested in him this past offseason, and there are always franchises looking for extra help coming off the edge. Now, one of the more interesting possibilities involves the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, I know, inter-conference, kind of an unlikely dance partner, but just think about it. There were reports that San Francisco had called about Crosby and Wilson, trying to gauge their availability. That tells you something. The Niners are hunting for edge help. So what if the conversation shifted to Koonce? Picture this. Vegas ships Malcolm Koonce and a late-round pick to San Francisco. And in return, the Raiders get a mid-round selection, maybe a fourth-rounder. It's not a blockbuster, but it's the kind of move that makes sense for both sides. The Niners have a deep roster, a few extra picks, and a need for rotational pass rushers. The Raiders, meanwhile, get something instead of nothing for a player who might walk in a few months. Now, let's move from the defense to the offensive line, where there's been some quiet tension brewing. Jackson Powers-Johnson, or JPJ as fans call him, is a name that keeps popping up in these conversations. He's a young, talented player, versatile enough to slide around the interior, strong, smart, and still growing. But it's become pretty clear that this coaching staff just doesn't see him as a long-term piece. He was benched earlier this season, and ever since, it feels like there's been a bit of a disconnect. So who might come calling for him? There are a few possibilities, but one team that makes a lot of sense is the Houston Texans. They've got a young quarterback they're trying to protect and an offensive line that could definitely use more stability. JPJ could start at guard or center right away and give them some real flexibility up front. If Houston offered a fourth-round pick, I think Vegas would have to consider it. Sure, you'd love to hold out for a second or third, but realistically, if a player doesn't fit what the coaching staff wants, it's better to move him while his value is still there. And while we're talking about value, here's a question that's been floating around every Raiders chat thread this week. How many trades do you think this team will actually make before the deadline? Fans are split. Some think the front office will just ride things out, do nothing, and wait for the offseason. Others believe at least one or two moves are bound to happen. Personally, I lean toward the second option. You can't keep talking about fixing the culture and building for the future while standing still. Doing nothing might be the worst signal this organization could send right now. Speaking of names to watch, let's talk about wide receiver Jakobi Meyers. Every week, his name creeps into more and more reports. He didn't play against Kansas City. Multiple teams have called about him. It's clear he's at least open to a fresh start somewhere else. Even if the Raiders don't want to admit it publicly, the trade chatter is real. The question is whether any team is willing to pay what Vegas wants. Now, there's one team that makes a lot of sense, and it's one that Meyers knows very well, the New England Patriots. That's the team that gave him a shot, the team that helped him carve out his place in the league. It would be a full-circle move. New England's offense has been struggling badly. They're starving for playmakers, and Meyers would slide right back into a system he already knows. A potential deal could involve safety Kyle Duggar, who's been on the trade block for a while. Swap a receiver for a defender. Both teams fill a need, and both get a fresh start. Now, Shifting gears a little, let's talk about what Vegas could do on the incoming side of things, the players they might actually want to go out and get. If you've been following the national conversation, there are two clear areas of need: cornerback and pass rusher. The Raiders' secondary has been inconsistent, and the defense as a whole needs more playmakers who can hold their own in man coverage. One name that jumps right out is Tariq Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. This kid has length, speed, and upside for days. And the crazy part? He might actually be available. Reports out of Seattle suggest that he's not an ideal fit in their current defensive scheme. The Raiders, on the other hand, could absolutely use a long, athletic corner who can match up with top receivers one-on-one. He was even mentioned as one of the top potential trade candidates in a recent league-wide report, and it's easy to see why. The trade itself doesn't need to be complicated. A mid-round pick for a player who still has tremendous upside and a rookie contract. Seattle's got other corners they like, and Vegas desperately needs help in coverage. It's a match that could benefit both sides. Plus, Woolen's play style fits exactly what this Raiders defense is missing: aggression, length, and the ability to make plays on the ball rather than just sitting back in zone and reacting. Another corner to watch is Alani Taylor from the New Orleans Saints. There's already a coaching connection there. Members of the Raiders' defensive staff worked with Taylor before, so they know exactly what kind of player he is. He's physical, versatile, and still developing. The Saints don't necessarily want to move him, but they're tight on draft capital and might listen if the offer's right. Taylor can line up outside or inside, which gives a defense flexibility, something Vegas has been lacking. If the Raiders offered a package of late-round picks, that could get New Orleans' attention. These are the kinds of moves that show a front office understands where it stands. You're not tearing everything down, but you're also not pretending everything is fine. You're being proactive, adding young, talented players who can grow with your roster while clearing out veterans or misfits who just don't fit the long-term vision. Because at the end of the day, that's the conversation that really matters in Vegas right now. What's the plan? You got a passionate fan base that's tired of empty promises and quick fixes. You've got cornerstone talents like Max Crosby who give everything every week, and you don't want to waste those prime years spinning your wheels. If this organization wants to take that next step, not just compete, but truly build something sustainable, then the moves they make at this deadline will say a lot. Now, while those trade possibilities already sound pretty interesting, there's one more scenario that keeps coming up whenever insiders talk about the Raiders. It's about the front office realizing that to truly rebuild this roster, they have to be willing to give up something of value. That means moving on from certain names that fans might like, but who just aren't fitting the current direction. One name that fits perfectly into that description is Boye Mafe from the Seattle Seahawks. This one has been buzzing quietly behind the scenes because of how both franchises are positioned. The Seahawks are in the middle of reshaping their defensive identity, and the Raiders are desperately looking for a young pass rusher who can complement Max Crosby and give opposing quarterbacks nightmares. Mafe's story is an interesting one. He came into the league with high expectations, and under Pete Carroll, he showed flashes of being a future star. He has the strength, burst, and motor that defensive coordinators love. But after Seattle shifted schemes, his production started to dip. Sometimes that happens. A talented player suddenly looks like a bad fit simply because the system around him changed. For the Raiders, that's an opportunity. They need fresh energy and a spark off the edge, someone who can take advantage of the attention Crosby draws on every play. The idea being tossed around is a potential swap involving Jackson Powers-Johnson. As crazy as it sounds, it actually makes sense for both sides. Seattle has been trying to strengthen its offensive line for years, and they could use a young, versatile lineman like JPJ. Meanwhile, the Raiders get a defensive end with upside who's still on his rookie deal. It's a gamble, sure, but that's exactly the type of calculated risk you take when you're trying to find the right mix of players who fit your scheme. If Vegas could pull off that trade, it would send a message that they're serious about building around their defensive identity. But beyond these trade talks, there's a larger theme developing here: accountability. For too long, the Raiders have been caught in this cycle of indecision. Each season feels like a new experiment, a new coach, a new direction, and then by the end of the year, fans are left wondering what the long-term vision actually is. The trade deadline gives this front office a chance to show they understand what kind of team they want to be. Are they committed to building through youth, speed, and development, or are they going to keep patching things together with short-term veterans? Let's be real, the locker room also feels that energy. Players know when a front office is active and when it's complacent. They see when management is trying to make the team better, and they also see when leadership is just coasting. A few smart moves can change the entire tone of a locker room. It tells the players that the people upstairs are paying attention, that mediocrity isn't acceptable, and that every spot on the roster has to be earned. On the defensive side, getting someone like Woolen or Taylor would immediately raise the ceiling. Both are young, both have the kind of traits that modern defenses crave, and both could be part of a long-term core. Imagine pairing a tall, rangy corner with someone like Nate Hobbs, while also giving the pass rush another burst of energy through a guy like Mafe. That combination could actually help the Raiders' defense take a leap forward, something they've been struggling to do for years. Of course, not everything revolves around trades. There's still the question of development. This team has drafted players with potential, but the next step is turning that potential into consistent production. That's been one of the biggest criticisms of the Raiders over the past few years. Too many draft picks who never quite hit their stride. Changing that narrative means surrounding those young players with the right mix of veterans and coaches who can bring the best out of them. It means creating a culture where accountability and growth go hand in hand. Now, when we zoom out a little, it's clear that the Raiders are at crossroads. They're not the worst team in the league, not by a long shot, but they're also not close to being a legitimate contender yet. They're in that frustrating middle ground, where one or two smart moves could either spark a turnaround or one wrong decision could send them spiraling. That's why these trade conversations matter so much. It's not just about getting or losing players. It's about defining the direction of the franchise. Fans have every right to demand more. This is a fan base that bleeds silver and black, that shows up through every rebuild, every heartbreak, every promise that didn't quite deliver. They deserve a front office that operates with urgency, with vision, and with a sense of pride in what the Raiders brand stands for. That's why even a small move, something like flipping a depth player for a mid-round pick, carries weight. It signals intent. It tells everyone paying attention that this team is trying to evolve instead of accepting mediocrity. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The NFL rumor mill is buzzing with excitement, and all eyes are turning to Las Vegas this week. Sources close to the team whisper that the Raiders have made a bold move in shoring up their defense, and the name on everyone's lips is Jack Jones. Dubbed the Hunter by insiders, Jones is said to be the new sheriff patrolling the backfield, and the speculation is that his arrival could reshape the Raiders' defensive identity entirely. While the team has remained tight-lipped, multiple hints from anonymous insiders suggest that Jones is not just another signing. He brings a reputation for ferocity and instinct, a player who seems to sense the quarterback's intentions before they even reach the line of scrimmage. Raiders fans have long yearned for a defensive anchor, someone capable of turning chaos into control, and whispers suggest that Jones might just be that answer. His style, described as relentless pursuit mixed with calculated aggression, is already drawing comparisons to some of the league's most feared defenders. The timing of the rumors is adding fuel to the fire. The Raiders' locker room, sources say, is electrified by the possibility of having a player who can impose his will on the field. While no official announcement has been made, insiders claim the energy around the team has shifted, with players already imagining the impact of a defensive stalwart commanding the secondary. Social media is ablaze with speculation, with fans dissecting every potential matchup and wondering how opposing quarterbacks will adjust to what could be a game-changing presence in Las Vegas. Of course, it's still early days. The true measure of Jones' impact will only be seen once he steps onto the field, and skeptics caution against reading too much into whispers and leaks. Yet if the rumors hold any weight, the Raiders may have just found the piece that transforms their defense from ordinary to intimidating. As the NFL world waits for confirmation, one thing is certain. Wherever Jack Jones goes, the buzz follows, and in Las Vegas, the chatter is louder than ever. Could the Hunter be the man to finally bring stability and fear to a Raiders defense desperate for both? The league waits with bated breath. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.